Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3843, 44. I'm not really sure. Today's date is January 26, 2026. It's been almost like a night at exactly 9:52 p.m. All right, let's just jump into the question. All right. The question is: am I emotionally ready for criticism, misunderstanding, or public judgment? Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is a YouTube kind of question. Okay, yeah. A kind of like assembly. I asked this question so that I would realize myself that am I worthy enough to kind of like said this thing that am I YouTuber or not? Like, am I worthy enough to kind of like assembly? Am I worthy enough for a YouTuber or not? Probably a kind of like a self-realization. These are kind of like a question. It kind of like gives me that realization, or gives me that understanding of that realization and things like that and that. So that's why I'm actually asking this question. Okay, yeah. Now regarding about the question says that am I emotionally ready for criticism, misunderstanding, or public judgment? Okay, that's a really good question. Okay. Now, before I kind of like assembly give any kind of like assembly answer, the words that we are saying is kind of like assembly far more lighter, like far more kind of like assembly is this thing that ki, like if someone says, "Are you tough?" I'm gonna say yes, I am tough. If someone criticizes you, are you absorbing that criticize, or are you kind of like assembly ignore? Are you what gonna do? I will gonna say, yeah, I will gonna like a peaceful. It's not really affect my like I will gonna say this thing. No, it's not really affecting me. Nothing really at all. I'm gonna be really good. But the words that I am saying and the reality will gonna happen is a far more different, dude. Far more different. Let me tell you one thing. Why am I saying this thing? Because of that, we are social animal. You, me, human, we are social animal. Our evolution of human is actually happened by the socialism. We always do something for someone. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Like basically is this thing, why are you doing your job? Why are you earning money? Why are you kind of like doing all those kind of like a very heavy stuff? Is because of that you wanted to live in the society. You wanted to portray yourself some sort of image in the society and things and that and that. Indirectly, like we are living for somebody, and that is true. You and me, everyone does. And no one will gonna argue this and that and that. So basically is this thing that we are conditioned to grow by social situation, by surrounding and things and that and that. We have some sort of responsibility that we have, that we don't know that thing, but we have it. We follow it. And that is a kind of like a makes us human, makes us kind of like a simply the person that who we are and things and that. And obviously someone kind of like a praises, or someone kind of like a simply give us that you are really good and things like that. We feel really good. That is true. But when someone criticizes, it felt wrong too. It felt wrong too. Do you get it? It's kind of like a thing that whoever the person you are, how strong you are, someone kind of like said this thing that you are kind of like doing something wrong. It does gonna affect. It does gonna affect everyone. People are kind of like a lie that they will gonna say this thing that it doesn't really affect them. It does. It does affect them. It does affect everyone. So basically is this thing that when the criticize actually happened, then how do you supposed to kind of like simply control yourself or things and that? Well, let me tell you one thing. Okay, yeah. Our emotion are not meant to kind of like stay all the time. When we are happy, we feel happy for a certain particular period of time, and then after that, it's gone. Every emotion, like basically sadness, happiness, horny, excited, or kind of like a some lot of emotions that we have. Okay, those are all emotions are kind of like a some stay for a while, for a particular period of time, and it kind of like is gone away after some certain amount of time. Okay, yeah, and that is true. Okay, So basically, is this thing na ki if someone criticize, like let's just say, if someone criticize me, does it gonna affect? Yeah, it gonna affect. Okay, yeah, it is gonna affect. But you can kind of like assembly train your thought process. Means what is that this thing? Okay, yeah, your emotion are kind of like also act like a muscle too. Example, you went to gym and you are kind of like lifting the dumbbells. You are kind of like started lifting almost like a 5 kilo of dumbbells. Okay, before that you haven't really lifted the dumbbell, and this is the first time you are kind of like lifting the dumbbell. Now when you are trying to lift the dumbbell, you realize that how heavy was dumbbell, but still you are trying to lift and things and that and that. And when you does that thing, after you lift and things and that, you are kind of like a muscle are snoring, like there is a lot of pain, or kind of like a muscle are snoring, muscle tears actually happen and things and that. First day of gym is kind of like a feel so heavy and things and that. Okay, but if you be continue, if you went to gym continue for almost like a 1 2 3 4 5 months, then after that 5 kilo of that dumbbell, it doesn't really feel that much weight. Why is that? Because your muscle are kind of like a used to with the carry that particular weight and things and that and that. Same thing happened with the emotion. Okay, yeah, so let's just say when particular emotion happened simultaneously every single time, at first time it gonna hit hard. Okay, yeah, but then after that it just kind of like assembly, just when it happened every day na, then it kind of like a feel like, yeah, okay, it kind of like a feel like, yeah. So basically it's this thing na, if criticism happened once, it does affect. But when you are in the particular situation when everyone are kind of like a criticize and things and that and that and that, then you are used to with this thing, your emotion are kind of like used to with this thing, and you don't really affect anything at all. I'm going to give you another example. A prime minister, okay, like Indian prime minister today is a Narendra Modi. Okay, yeah. Now Narendra Modi is a prime minister and he is also a person too. And obviously, belong to the India. There are so many people who gonna say this thing that our prime minister is a kind of like a really stupid guy and things and that and that. There are every random person will gonna kind of like say this thing. No, our prime minister say this thing and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, they will kind of not only say this thing, they will kind of like somebody went to the social media say this thing, fuck you Modi and things and that and that. Not only on social media, they went to kind of like somebody, they make a video, record things and that and that. God knows what they can do, able to do and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing that how does it kind of like affect prime minister? Well, he not. Why is that? Because he's not kind of like a particular person to just directly became a prime minister. No, he was kind of like a chief minister of Gujarat for almost like a decade. Okay, and before that he was kind of like a politician and things and that. He is a politician and he knows how does people thinks and that and that and that. He been through experience regarding about all the people thought process and things. Obviously is this thing, you are a person and you cannot change people opinion, even if how good you are or how bad you are. Yeah, you can't change. Okay, so in that particular situation you have to let them go, let them think about that you are kind of like a wrong and things and that. Don't kind of like tell them that they are wrong and things and that. No, there is always a kind of like a particular person who will gonna say this thing, you are bad and things and that and that. And by the way, the person that who's kind of like telling you bad is kind of like have a particular legit evidence, and they definitely will gonna say. Okay, yeah. So being politician or being a Narendra Modi, he's a kind of like always in entire life he being politician, and he been trolled a lot since entire period of lifetime. So basically is this thing, at the beginning he might gonna affect, but after so many years of experience and things and that, it does not affect at all. Literally not. Okay, yeah, he will gonna kind of like a pass through a kind of like a some bunch of people who, all those people who are kind of like criticizing and things and that, he will gonna walk straight and doesn't really feel that much well, like doesn't really feel like that much affect and things and that. Because as I mentioned, when you went to the gym for every single day, then your body, your muscle are kind of like a some habitat with all the kind of like a routine that you doing and things and that. Same thing happened with me at the beginning. I was kind of like running for 10 minutes. It kind of like feel like that I'm gonna die. Right now, it's been almost like a 3-4 year. I'm kind of like running every single day, and 30 minutes is kind of like something very normal to me. It's just like that, so normal that it doesn't really feel anything at all. Like I was kind of like something running 30 minutes. Like today, I also went to run. It doesn't really feel at all. feel at all, nothing really at all. So same thing happened with the emotions too. Yes, at the beginning it might gonna hurt, but after some sort of time it became used with this thing. Now another thing is that key why these lessons are really essential for a YouTuber is because of that key when you are kind of like a YouTuber, that means you are kind of like a showing your creator or creativity or your phrase or your persona into the kind of like a social media and things and that where millions people will gonna see and things and that and that. Now let me tell you one thing, you are a human and you are not a white person. Like let me tell you one thing now, in entire world we are not exactly white or we are not entirely black, we are just shades of gray. We have something white and something dark. Yeah, that is all true. You, me, everyone, even Jesus too, even every gods too. Yeah, no one is kind of like only white and things and that because that white is not even exist and black is not even exist too. Yeah, like this is what it is. Like how much some people, how much some person would kind of like consider as bad. It might be bad, but there is some sort of kind of like a good things. Like let me tell you one thing: now good thing and bad thing cannot live without each other. Yeah, it might be kind of like some personality might be good, but some personality, some bad personality might be little less, but they always stick with each other. Like good and bad thing will always stick together. They will not gonna remove and things and that. So when there is no completely white person and when there is no completely black person, by the way, black and white is a kind of like somebody is not represent a color, it represent a kind of like a pure, it represent that how good is person they are and things and that. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key when you are kind of like doing a YouTube or kind of like a social media and things and that, obviously you are kind of like showing your things and that. Okay, yeah. Now in this particular period of time, you might gonna do mistake. You might not gonna do kind of like a somebody like you might gonna do mistake and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now because of this mistake, people kind of like criticize and things and that. How should I supposed to be kind of like take care of myself? Well, first of all is that key whatever actually happened, just accept that happened. It is really essential thing that key it is accept that it happened, because it is really essential that key why am I say this thing that it why am I kind of like say this thing that it accept. Okay, is this thing na key okay, let me tell you one thing, some people are not able to handle the criticism. Why is that? Because they cannot able to accept that ki they did something really wrong. Example is this thing that ki have you ever kind of like simply went to a fight where you are trying to prove your point and other person kind of like prove you wrong. Okay, yeah. Now why in this particular situation you are try to prove how good you are or how right you are, but another person kind of like say this thing how bad you are or how not good you are. Okay, yeah. Now in this particular context, who is right? Am I right? That particular some person right? No, definitely not. As I mentioned, each person is a shades of gray. So basically is this thing there is some sort of thing is kind of like a darkness that some people might gonna see, and that is true, and that is accept. You have to be accept that thing that key I did something wrong that might gonna affect people, and you have to accept this thing, because acceptance is one of the really essential thing that you have to understand. A couple of weeks ago I was kind of like a makeup content regarding about a kind of like a somebody girl who is kind of like a somebody walking towards all the burqa ladies and things and that. Okay, yeah. By the way, that girl who is kind of like a wearing bikini and kind of like a somebody, she is walking towards all those kind of like a woman, she is kind of like a wearing burqa and things and that. Now my message was in the image is that he like basically this thing, even if you get the freedom, but freedom doesn't really comes from kind of like something external, it comes from the internal too. Means like that what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki like at I don't know how to supposed to explain this thing. It's I also doesn't really feel like while I was kind of like creating this piece of content, my message was kind of like a little bit right regarding about that kind of like some difference between the woman's freedom and things and that in one frame. But people who kind of like take it very wrong and they kind of like think that ki dude, what the fuck that you are kind of like saying, because usually is this saying that the burqa is a kind of like a represent the religious costume. It's not a kind of like a simply a fashion and things and that. Okay, and yeah, I kind of like upload that post and kind of like so many people kind of like a hate rate and things and that. And yeah, I do feel really good. I realized that ki, yeah. So in the, like it didn't really went that much because I don't really have that much follower and things and that. So yeah, but I lost almost like a 63 follower, but that is okay. Yeah, like basically it is kind of when you are kind of like a social media platform, it actually happened. That is okay. Yeah, but what I realized that ki instead of kind of like correct them, I didn't really correct them. No, I just kind of like seen their comment. Some people kind of like saying what the fuck you are and things and that and that. I kind of like simply read those comment. That's it. Then after that, next day, I kind of like upload my next content. I just kind of like simply just forget that thing. Like let's just say that key, like do your work. Like why are you kind of like let them affect and things like that. Like at the beginning, I've realized that key, okay, the message that I'm creating is not kind of like a properly delivered is because of that key I was not properly execute that proper content. And yeah, I realized that and I will not gonna that mistake again and things and that. So yeah, because sometimes na, my creativity is a kind of like a bit more fragile. Like I thought that in a such a way, but people think very different way. So yeah, so it actually happened. Yeah, it actually happened. So I just have to understand from every possible perspective and things and that, and then I execute my content. I understand that thing, but whatever it happened, it happened. I accept this thing and okay. So basically this thing, acceptance is one of the really essential thing that you have to do. Like people criticize, people will gonna criticize for something. Obviously is this thing that ki you have something wrong. Now let me tell you one thing now. Some people are criticized for you. Okay, yeah, let me tell you one thing. There are so many people who are actually exist in our society. I'm not really sure about the US and Europe, but probably in India, there are so many people who are kind of like a exist in our society. They just come to kind of like a criticize you. Okay, they just only have one job to criticize you and things and that. And why does they do that? Because they just hate you, or they just, yeah, like I don't know why they think and that, but they just hate you and they just always criticize you, always, even if you are kind of like a, did something so good, but still people are kind of like a criticize you and things and that. So in this particular context, let them shout, let them kind of like only let them do whatever they want to do and things and that, but you can't stop them, you cannot convince them to kind of like, and how many people would you convince? You cannot do this thing. Okay, like basically is this thing na, I think that na ki a person should suppose judge by the action that he was kind of like a do and things and that, what he kind of like a did in his entire life and things and that. Obviously every person is not a good person. As I mentioned, every person is a shades of gray. So basically, yeah, criticism will gonna happen, things and that. One thing that you do is acceptance and just face it. Okay, at the beginning it might gonna hurtful, but after a while it just felt like that. Okay, it's felt like that ki, yeah, it's a common, it's a kind of like a thing that ki, yeah, it's gonna pass through. So this is what it is, na dude. Okay, yeah. So from my point of perspective, I think that in my entire bit of lifetime, I haven't really faced that much criticism. Okay, yeah. But I will gonna face in the future. I will gonna face lot of criticism. Okay. So am I prepared for that thing? I'm not really sure. Why? Even if I have all the information and things, I mentioned this thing that I will gonna accept and things and that. But when reality hits, it hit very hard. And the words that I'm saying is like so fragile, it just broke very easily, because reality will gonna hit very hard, dude. Very hard. As I mentioned, we are social animal. You, me, we are all kind of like exist are because of kind of like a particular purpose, are associated with the society, associated with someone and things and that. The effort that we are putting in our life is because of somebody. So yeah, it gonna hurt. Okay, so I think that in the future, if I will gonna criticism and things and that, I will gonna accept, but yeah, it will gonna hurt me at some time. But I do know that after some sort of time, it will be okay. It will be kind of like a things. Okay, another thing, I do have a kind of like a somebody different coping mechanism regarding about handling the criticism. Okay, or like a anger. Okay, specifically anger. Because criticism is a kind of like a thing that key, okay, but anger is a kind of like simply a next step. Like basically when the criticism actually happened, you became angry, and that is true. Okay, yeah. And for that anger, how do I supposed to control mechanism? So how do I supposed to control the anger? I have this kind of like a coping mechanism. Coping mechanism means like that. How do I supposed to control this thing and that? Okay, so how do I supposed to control this thing? So when I get too angry, too much angry, I know that I'm gonna do something very bad. Like when I became angry, I will gonna do something really bad and things and that and that. So what I do is that I just I just kind of like a put myself in such a situation where no one is around me. Lock my door, or maybe kind of like I will kind of like lock inside the room and things like that, and I'm gonna scream so loudly, yeah, and things and that so loudly. Maybe I will gonna record the artifact in empty room or things like that and that. Like artifact will gonna kind of like really help me a lot regarding about every possible situation. But is this saying that I will gonna scream? I might gonna record artifact, because in the artifact there is no one listen. I just kind of like one mobile phone who's kind of like a recording and things. I'm just kind of like saying all those stupid shit and things and that and that. And after that thing, in this artifact, I kind of like a blunt out everything that what I wanted to say and things and that and that and that and that. Yeah, so many things. And then after that, after some sort of time, it just kind of like something feel really good. And then yeah, like basically it's this thing now. Couple of years ago, one of my friend who has me and my friend who has a kind of like a fight regarding about something. Okay, yeah. Now basically that something actually happened, and I got very angry, very angry. Okay, yeah. Now when I got very angry, what I did is that I kind of like went away from that location and kind of like somebody go to such a place where I went to the ground probably at that night. Okay, I went to the ground, I scream a lot, I record artifact, I kind of like said this thing that this happened, that. Okay, yeah. Then after that I feel really good. Okay, and after a while I just kind of like somebody just stay there for at least like a half an hour and things and that, and then I come back and I feel really good. Yeah, basically is this thing that it does not really it does not have that anger was gone. Okay, so this is a kind of like a coping mechanism that I do, and it kind of like somebody feel really good. Okay, feel really kind of like somebody that I would handle that stuff and things and that. So this is what it is. Also every person has a kind of like somebody different kind of like somebody system. Like some people kind of like somebody started say this thing that start count from 0 to 100 and things and that. Every person has a different mechanism regarding about how they should supposed to control their anger. So yeah, okay, this is just mine. So this is what it is. Regarding about the question says that am I emotionally ready for criticism, misunderstanding, or public judgment? Am I emotionally ready? I think that yes, am I, but I think I am not ready. Okay, I am ready, but I'm not really basically I understand the phenomena, I understand the consequences, I understand the everything, but when the reality will gonna hit, it will gonna hit very hard, and you cannot kind of measure that how much it gonna hit gonna hard and things like that, because every word that I say is a very fragile word. It gonna broke when the reality will gonna happen. So yeah, I also understand at the beginning I might gonna hurt, I might gonna kind of feel really not so good and things and that, but after some sort of time I will gonna control myself because of this coping mechanism and control and things and that. So yeah, whatever. So this is it. I should supposed to be end here, and thank you.